The option to censor books began in 1791 with the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment ensures United States citizens have freedom of speech and of the press, among other freedoms relating to expression of beliefs and ideas. In many cases, students throughout the times have been protected in their decisions to explore ideas and cultivate their identities within the text that interest them. In these cases, intellectual freedom is the overriding principle, and for the purpose of developing into informed citizens in a free society, they must be allowed to explore ideas which challenge them and take them beyond the world that they already know. However, the First Amendment also protects individuals wishing to censor curriculums across schools. Censoring books continued with the formation of the evangelical movement and an emphasis on traditional morality. Anthony Comstock and the YMCA of New York formed a committee on obscene literature in 1868. In 1873, the Comstock Act, known collectively as the Comstock Laws, made it illegal to send any obscene material through the mail, and the obscenity law allowed for the persecution of anyone that printed any materials that could be described as filthy, indecent, pornographic, or obscene. Victoria Woodhull broke this law and sent literature containing sexual material by mail. Woodhull was arrested, but it was her arrest that shed light on the 19th century's thought of sex. Sex became thought of as a desire of the mind, and literature, especially literature surrounding love and romance as themes, was seen as dangerous. The 1950s and 1960s saw an insurgency in censorship of adolescents. Society feared the corruption of the young, especially due to the anti-communist hysteria and racial unrest. In an effort to keep children innocent, the public school system became a prime battleground with teachers and the curriculum scrutinized for unhealthy thoughts and actions. With the shift in the societal and generational interactions from children being influenced by their parents to children being influenced by other children, the need for censorship increased. In fact, in New York City, Dr. Frederick Wertham, a psychiatrist, began to see the correlation between literature and children and adolescent behavior. Dr. Wertham was especially interested in the effects of comic book violence and the behavior of children and adolescents. With the establishment of Comics Magazine Association of America in 1954, a new comics code was created. This code emphasized that violence and sex were particularly censored, and the words horror and terror could not be used in a comic title. New York City was particularly concerned with youth and behavior. Aside from the Comics Code in Buffalo, New York, the Mayor's Advisory Committee on Salacious Publications and the Buffalo Youth Board focused their attention on comic books, girly magazines, and other materials that might incite youth to lust and sex crimes. Nearing the 1970s and early 80s, fundamentalist leaders began focusing their attention on the public schools as the American institution that embodied all the evils of a secular society. With the push toward a more traditional education system, fundamentalists also attempted to remove books and materials from public schools and libraries that they believed conveyed secular, humanistic values and morals. For example, Texas's textbooks were censored at the hands of Mel and Norma Gabler, who conducted an ideological screening and sought to remove any material that offended their religious beliefs and their right-wing political views. Additionally, in 1982, the Board of Education versus Island Trees Union Free School District, number 26 versus PICO, school board members of Long Island's Island Trees District challenged several books off the shelves of the school library. As a result, the Supreme Court found in favor of keeping the books on the shelves. It rules that school boards had the right to remove materials they deemed educationally unsuitable or pervasively vulgar, but they may not restrict access to materials simply because they disagree with the ideas in them. Historically, books have been banned because they are deemed inappropriate for their sexually explicit and racially toned languages, as well as for expressing unpopular political, religious, or cultural views. For instance, To Kill a Mockingbird was challenged in Hillsborough, Ohio in 2004 by a 63-year-old black woman. However, the controversy was centered on the civil rights movement, desegregation, and the book's use of the N-word over 200 times. The superintendent decided to keep the book in the curriculum as it was a clear confrontation to racism and an opportunity to teach tolerance. The Catcher in the Rye and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn are banned from numerous public schools. The Catcher in the Rye is controversial because of its language and homosexual undertones, and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn possesses debatable language and racism. These novels were of particular importance because they have been considered classics and outlasted over 50 years of objections. The Awakening by Kate Chopin caused controversy within public high schools. The main concern with Chopin's work was the representation of female sexual desire within the novel. School board members did not want high school students reading Chopin's obscene material in classrooms. Therefore, to maintain a curriculum with acceptable literature at its core, public schools, such as many in Illinois, based The Awakening from the curriculum and summer reading lists. Banning of books continue with The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Salinger's piece was banned from the English curriculum in public schools as it is said to be too vulgar, with the inclusion of bad language and sexual references. Similar to Catcher in the Rye, Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck is banned from English classrooms and public schools for its offensive language. Today, censorship and the banning of books still occurs, mostly because of religious undertones in the society. For example, in 2002, the parents of a fourth grader in Cedarville, Arkansas, sued the principal and superintendent of schools for placing the Harry Potter books on a restricted bookshelf. The judge ruled in favor of the parents. He concluded that requiring parental permission to read Harry Potter might indeed imply that children who choose the books are evil in the eyes of their classmates. The case proved as an enormous victory, and if the defendants of the case had lost, severe implications would have been seen in similar cases to follow, including that the Catholic League's opposition to Philip Pullman's The Golden Compass in the fall of 2007 could have landed the book on a restricted shelf along with any number of works of fantasy. To consider the rulings of many cases against censorship, one would notice a trend that one case opens the door for another, with a strong trend in rulings that deem banning texts as unconstitutional under most circumstances. With the number of cases against specific texts and materials, many books that are widely read, loved, and help students of all ages to cultivate their own identities might be reachable. There are two sides to the battle of censorship and banned books. The pro-censorship side argues that conservative parents feel that their personal values aren't taken into consideration. It affects marginalized groups by the portrayal of characters and themes, and messages discussed within the novels. Teachers and parents both restrict the uses of certain books from their students and children, and like the school board, teachers and parents believe that they are protecting the well-being of students. However, others who don't agree with censorship feel the teacher is limited on what he or she can address in terms of literature. The process of challenging books and censoring classroom materials silences teachers. It strips from them their power to make decisions about what materials to use in order to effectively teach lessons about life, or attempt to expand students' worldviews to ideas that fall outside of their normal scope. This silence of teachers and their lack of choice puts volumes of students at a loss. They no longer have access to a learning experience that is as rich as possible, for their materials are limited and they do not have an opportunity to learn from challenging texts or quality pieces of literature. Banning books also silences students. They are not able to express their thoughts on literature or actual academic importance. Examining these patterns and explanations for banning books, teachers can be better equipped to challenge other possible censorships. In addition, students will have the ability to experience the universal issues described in books.